That's,
That's me with Frank.
I guess it was about my time there. Maybe I'm sitting on his lap.
and that's Frank?
Yeah, it's
Frank.
Frank.
That's when Frank just came.
Yeah.
So how old was he?
He was about 17.
And that's the same house that Tommy and I saw
That's the same house that we lived
Still
in.
there.
recently, and it looked the same, with that same siding.
Riverside?
Of course, it's
Yeah.
a new
Yeah.
siding, but it's still there.
Still standing?
Took a
And
picture
it was
of
for
it, and
sale last year.
looked,
It was all painted up for sale. The barn was gone, all the fruit
Yeah,
trees were gone.
everything's
The
gone.
lot was all cleaned up.
the strangest thing is after Tommy and I had seen the house, and it looked just like that with the siding and the steps, we went back to her house, and she had this picture sitting there on her coffee table, and it looked just like that.
Hannah, Tom,
Tom, and
and I most likely I'm sitting on his lap. Yes, Frank, Dad, Fred, Mom,
so
and the
this-
five of us.
that was a Riverside picture.
This is the Riverside picture.
That
I think that's the
part
only,
of the family.
I think that's the only picture I have of
It's about
my mom
1960.
carrying me.
Could you say the names? I'm gonna point this.
That's Mom and me,
Tommy,
Tommy,
Tom,
Tom,
Ray,
and
Hannah, and Jim.
Jim.
Frank, Dad, and Fred.
Roger. Like Roger.
Uh-huh.
Right. Yeah. Isn't it? Yeah.
This was,
That's Hannah,
You
Tom,
can see
May.
that.
who's on Tom's
Got
lap?
a couple other people I don't know there. Tom and Hannah stand out. I get May.
somebody else is in there. No, the
No.
two neighbor kids I knew.
I thought that was you out with the ribbon.
Oh,
Red
that's,
button.
It looks like Fred, that got Tom,
Hannah,
Looks like
Hannah,
Tom.
yeah, Hannah, Tom,
Hey,
Jim,
Jim
and
and Tommy. Oh, thank you.
Do you remember Jim, the dad intended only to have 5 children? You know,
Thank
he
you.
named them
Yeah, yeah, he did name
by
according to the flower,
by the
yeah.
flower, like
Hanagasai.
Hanagasai.
He was wanting to have all that children.
実がなって収めて
Sunset, Tomie.
Hana Tamotsu, something like that, huh?
Because we were both,
That's why I had that authority.
Tamotsu, that's all I really, I think they must have been to the
flower
left.
bloom. There it
there's
is.
the mission, because of the Riverside Mission.
Yeah, it was pretty close. And
Riverside.
he was a good friend of the owner of the
I heard
mission.
something about the nurse, is that where he was working?
No, he owned,
Who did?
my dad owned.
He started the missionary.
His father did?
Nursery.
I heard that he had a farm.
He had a farm before that.
After that.
After.
After they had to get rid of the nursery because of Hannah, they
So the farm
went to
to
the,
Riverside.
went to the suburbs. And he went to go cop.
I remember when they said he had planted whole rows of engrafted, you know, all these rows with, I think it was citrus and stuff. And then Tom followed after him, kept pulled off all of those. When he turned around, he had pulled them all off. Jim?
This is a picture of me when I was in elementary school, and I was given the honor of being one of the first crossing guards, and they gave us a little. This is if you put it down, Laura, you'll see the shield.
Jim.
This is the shield.
Patrol.
Done school safety patrol we wore on our arm,
Oh, that's
on
him.
our arm.
Oh, I didn't.
And we even stopped traffic in those days.
Wow.
My dad was so proud of me that he had a formal picture taken.
No.
Dawn was one too.
You had Jackie?
Jackie.
Yeah.
Where's the dog?
It looks like Carol, that picture. You know,
Yeah.
it looks like her when she was little.
Yeah.
Oh, well, look at this, look at the pants.
Cute. You can see we were very well made at that time.
Carol looked like that when she was little.
Let's see, was this,
You were about 5 or 6 then.
I guess we were on Coenga Avenue at that time. Had a store on Coenga Avenue.
That had to be before
And
that.
I didn't have to work until I was 12 years of age. Just played around until then. After 12, I had to put in full-time work the rest of my life. When we first went to, that's my mother there, and Dad, Hannah, Tom, and Jim,
Bill.
Bill, David,
And me.
Tony, and May. This was taken in the backyard of the Coenga Avenue store in Hollywood when we first moved there.
Year before I was born.
Dorothy, you were only a gleam at that time.
Well, they had promised Mrs. Krebs, she was so nice to them, that that they would have a baby named after Mrs. Krebs, Dorothy. So that's why they were afterthoughts. The first one was David, because it was a D, was a boy, so they named David for D, Dorothy. And then the second one turned out to be Bill.
Another boy.
And so they named him after the son,
William.
Bill, William. And then finally Dorothy, so my mother could quit.
Well, your mother said she wouldn't have had so many children if she'd known about birth control. In those days, they didn't talk about birth control. That's Hannah. When she was very popular, Frank.
Frank.
Like a big truck.
That was in
Must
Glendale.
have been a store.
23.
23. There's that.
Yeah, that's when their first Ito Brothers Market. Yeah,
Actually,
Colorado
I-
Boulevard.
Ranch
I
market.
think they're the one that originated the supermarkets in those
Well, the
days
ranch
where you
market.
combined,
They started the ranch market.
where you combined everything. They didn't have them in those days in the Ito. Fred and Frank started the first one where they had meat market, grocery, and fruits.
That was in Glendale.
Mhm.
Employees. Must have been a pretty big operation. Yeah. To have a large market.
They were successful because I think in those days, by the time he was 30, wasn't he a millionaire? In those days, that was a lot of money.
Was this
for
the
young.
Packard or?
This looks like his Packard days.
Remember, they used to drive around in the Packard, and people just thought he was a chauffeur.
Yeah.
They each had, Fred and Frank, they each had their Packard.
And then Fred went back to Japan to he built a apartment house during the war there, and he only got partly finished, and he had to stop building because of the shortage of materials during the war, and so it was a losing proposition, and so he lost everything. We had to send him, Dad had to send him money so he could come back to the United States.
This big sale on at the market or something, a crowd.
It was busy. It was something new to find, that they didn't have to go from store to store to go shopping, and here they could shop in one place.
Hey, Jim,
Pardon?
what Who was it, Fred or Frank, went to Japan and
That's what we
started
talk
potato
about
chip
a
factory
lot,
in
Fred.
Japan?
Brothers.
Yeah,
So
they
then you get well, and just the moisture, they couldn't keep it out. Snagged it.
He had,
Fred was in
three.
He was in
started that.
stock market in, it's after Labor
I thought
Day.
Fred
He
was the
was,
one who did both.
when Bongo was born, that's
Started
4
the
months later. he
potato
was
chip
back.
factory in
Yeah,
Japan.
yeah, I remember hearing
And,
about that.
did a lot of research on it. But when he finally got it perfected, then a big company came in and took over and put him out of business.
He came in where?
Potato chips
Potato
company.
Potato chip factory. That's one of the reasons why he lost money.
In Japan. Well, I thought it just wasn't very successful because the potato chips didn't hold up, you know,
Well,
the
he did a
humidity.
lot of research. He finally perfected it.
Mhm.
But by that time, he ran out of money, and a big company came in and just flooded the area. Right.
Frank, going business.
Delivering, maybe?
I guess he's preparing
They delivered in those days.
preparing a delivery.
Jimmy is.
Jim and Jim,
Oh. Yeah, that's Fred's first son.
first son.
Jimmy, this is Dorothy speaking, we were both the same age. He was my nephew, 6 months younger than
She
him.
was auntie
But,
at 6 months.
That's
we
Jim,
were-
that's
we
Jim
were-
Meek.
That's Jim.
They're both-
and
That's Jim Ito too.
Fred's
son.
son, Jimmy. We were best friends.
He has since passed away, I heard.
All dressed up.
That's Tom, Hannah, Tomie, Hannah, Tomie, Tom, Jim, and May.
May, and who's that down below?
The
Who's the
little-
little?
That must be, that looks
I
like
thought it was
Jimmy.
Jimmy.
Is that Jimmy?
It's Jimmy.
Oh, it says Jimmy.
Here we are.
May, Jim, and Tomie.
Oh, I'll have
Hollywood.
to explain this picture, why I'm looking up at the photographer.
That's
What I
Jimmy.
understand is he had a newfangled camera where he could set it and rush back in, and it was an automatic camera that would take the picture. So he rushed back to be with the group, and me being this the little kid wondering
What was
what
going on?
happened, you know, how do you do that?
I can't remember.
Boy, Hannah was real clever, so.
Oh, yeah, she was quite a gal.
She was
those
a
days.
beauty.
She was the most popular girl in Hollywood.
Yeah,
And she
Daddy
looks
kept-
tall there.
All the young men chased her.
She looks tall there, but she wasn't 5 foot.
She was very feisty, and, you know, was-
That's your mother.
Gosh, she's got high heels on.
And this is Dorothy
That's
Krebs
one.
that was mentioned earlier,
Well, that's-
befriended the family where they had the market, and she wanted one of the children to be named after her, Dorothy
When
Krebs.
we were on Western Avenue.
Mhm.
Georgia
So
Chris.
eventually, when I was
She's
born, I
named
got
after,
her
Dorothy's
name
named after
Dorothy.
Dorothy Cribs, the one that was so nice.
And this is, she
Godmother.
her home was in Robinson, Illinois, but she was living in Beverly Hills at the time when she met
They
the
had
family.
their summer home, I think, in the winter home.
This
Boy,
is,
showing off his muscles.
this is Chotado. At the age estimated, he must have been about, what, 60? Almost 60 or thereabouts, in good shape. And that's Dorothy with the doll that Mrs. Krebs had given her. Took her to a department store in Beverly Hills and told her to pick a doll. This was a doll My birthday's on December 12th, and then that same month, she sent over the buggy to go with it.
She made, Mrs. Krebs made my mother so happy because she never used to get these lace underwear, you know, slips and stuff. And she just really bought us such beautiful things all the time.
You know the date on this one?
Glendale, was it?
It must have been Glendale, period. I remember the picture, but I can't recall.
1928.
I was too young to remember. This was taken in Glendale by Fred with one of his fancy cameras. And that's Jimmy and I
You.
together.
And-
We were both about 5 years old there. That's me and Jimmy, and his mother behind,
Mary.
Mary. And May on the right of her, and Bill.
Gladward. May.
Beautiful picture of our mother
Hannah.
with her long
Jerry.
curly hair. And she looks so tall.
Tonya.
She's tiny. Tonya,
David. Tom. Frank.
Right.
And Dad.
Yeah, that was,
Fred.
that one's taken in
In
Glendale.
Glendale,
I went to see that place.
Yeah, that's right.
We went to see that, that house there.
Yeah.
That's some fat beer, huh?
Huh?
See, we're holding hands.
It's a bar.
They must fat there.
That one walk in there.
Shortly after that, there was a
That's fat.
I used to live here.
Fred and Jimmy and
That must be Dorothy, huh?
I didn't
Is that
get to
Dorothy?
go back, but I remember always.
looks like Jimmy, doesn't it?
Says Jimmy and
He died young, huh? 85, Jimmy and Fred?
I swung at David, missed him, and I
No,
hit,
Fred died that year.
knocked all the skin off my knuckles.
Watch out.
Same
Fred
thing.
died.
60 years.
Hannah and Dorothy in Hollywood.
Frank died before then, didn't he? Frank died.
Was it a nursery or something?
Looks like a nursery.
Who's that?
Yellow can.
This is the period of the
That's your
1930s.
It's 1928 to 32, so it's around 1929.
That's a nice picture. There's the dad and mom
Babies, huh?
in Glendale.
Really.
Oh,
There
there
he
he
is.
is.
He's got
You've
his
heard
white
about
horse.
the white horse. Well,
Used to call it.
I remember this picture being taken there in San Gabriel. We were leasing the property, 25 acres, I believe it was, on San Gabriel Boulevard, just below the PE tracks, which is now the 10 freeway, San Bernardino Freeway. There was rhubarb growing and berries in the background. And for some reason, Dad had these pictures taken that day, and he mounted our workhorse and found out later that he had had experience riding horses,
And it's very-
probably both in Hawaii and Peru.
Yes, and it's very unusual in those days for a Japanese farmer to be able to ride a horse, so it was quite a big thing that here's a man from Japan that could ride a horse.
I was shocked that day
But
to see
it
him
was
on
kind
that
of a
horse.
symbol,
To
yeah, it
tell
was
you
a
the
symbol to
truth.
Dad because of the white horse that he had,
That's his horse.
yeah.
Yeah, it was our
because of
a farm horse.
His
Greedy.
great grandfather who was
Greedy.
samurai.
Was that Queen? Yeah.
Yeah.
Luckily, a docile horse. That's Jim and, no, that's Dave.
David.
Tommy, Renee. So that must have been taken in Hollywood. David was born in 1921.
Yeah, David is pretty young.
And this was taken in Riverside at the Mission Inn Dad had worked
That guy killed him.
at
Killed
the
him.
Riverside Mission Inn,
He put in the Taffy's garden.
and we were guests of the management at that time. Tom drove us, Mom, Dad, and myself to the inn, and we were joined by the Sakai Hewitt Sakai, who lived in Riverside, and met them there, and we had dinner there. We were guests and stayed overnight in one of the suites. And that was about 1931?
More than, I think.
This is Union Church, the old Union Church, in 1933, funeral of our mother, Kiku Ito. That little child there is Dorothy on the right. Frank is holding
My mother's.
her hand. And that's me next to her, and I think that's Jim Yoshise back of me.
How did
And
she pass away?
1933.
How? Was she?
Cancer.
Cancer.
Is that Margaret there? Margaret and Tonya and
And then I had to
Hannah.
become mother, and I had to raise the family after that. I think I was 17, and had to do all the washing by hand, and, you know. had
What
to-
happened to
That's
Hannah?
Keith's mother.
I think I one too many. I think I one too many.
Frank.
There's Dorothy.
Margaret.
Is that Dorothy?
That's Dorothy.
Those days, son.
Pretty. Margaret and Frank.
That's her, huh?
That's
That's
Lambertville.
Hannah.
Hannah.
That's Hannah.
Oh, that's Hannah? Oh, I thought that was Dorothy.
Her
Must
flapper
have
days.
been in the 30s.
That's just her flapper days.
That's when she was around 19.
How old was Hannah when she married?
26.
What? This is in Rosemead. With Dave and Bill in front, and Jim, and Jim Yoshise, and Tom in the back.
That's Tom.
Tom was skinny in those days.
Yeah.
On the right side, that's Tom.
On the right, that's Tom.
Well, he was skinny.
You know, we used to call Yoshise, what did,
That's Yoshi said in the middle.
mhm.
Yeah.
We didn't call him Jim in those days. We
No.
just,
Tetzel.
That's
Tetchan.
Look how cute they have the same sweaters.
Yeah.
No, look at that.
Twins.
Twins.
Always kind of dressed.
You know it wasn't
Yeah,
that,
they
you know.
He's bigger than him right there. Oh.
May and
May
May
and Tax.
Yes.
Oh,
She was so
cute.
pretty.
Don't remember that picture. You know where that was taken?
You know, Tats
Ellen?
used to be a
That's
good
before they
singer.
were,
Yeah.
that's before they were married.
Seems to me.
Never heard him sing.
Oh, this
He
is,
had a beautiful voice.
the reason this is in here is it was at Lexington Elementary School in El Monte, which was a segregated school. This was in 1933 when this picture was taken, and Tony had just supplied this. It was some special program that we had there, and it was Mexican and Japanese segregated school. When we moved to the country, I was, I think, in the 3rd grade, and Dave and Bill got to go to Columbia School, and I had to go to this segregated school.
Lexington.
Lexington. And I was really crushed, and I had to go there. It was kind of a transitional type of school where the early, Japanese immigrants, the children didn't speak English too well, and the Mexicans, of course, didn't speak English. So I didn't speak Japanese, so it was difficult for me to be separated.
But actually, they didn't overly segregate the Japanese, they just segregated, it was mostly for Mexican. In those days, they had
By that
showers and all
time,
that
yeah.
type of things in the school.
By that time, it
Yeah,
really
but,
wasn't
the
necessary.
Japanese
And it
were-
ended after the war.